What the hell? You could have had my back in there. Bro, you're not the real Noir, okay? You can talk. Look, but enough's enough. Bro!
Where's Noir?
He just disappears every afternoon. Won't say where he's going, won't say shit. It's a method. It's the miser technique.
Today we got Black Noir isn't who we think he is. So if you're not caught up, this basically go over the boys. I think the third episode actually dropped today. I didn't even watch it yet, but it goes over the first two. So if you watched it, you've seen that Black Noir, obviously it's a new one, or he's not talking again, the one that was replaced by the first one. We trying to figure out what's going on. I don't know if they sealed his mouth shut, if it's a new one, or maybe it's my theory. I think it might be Sam, maybe trying to infiltrate from Gen V. So let's see what this guy's talking about in the video. Shout out to D Naz, he's the one that made this video. He created it, so we're gonna watch this video, react to it, see if we agree, or let me know what y'all theories is, because I don't know. But the season is cooking up. It's definitely cooking up. But yeah, I'm gonna have to watch the new episode today, because the new episode dropped today, the third episode. I didn't even watch that one yet, but let me know what y'all think. Who Black Noir might be, I don't know. Let's get straight into the reaction.
Looking up and the stars align. SSG, I'm in my prime. Hey, wanna join the gang, but you ain't got ties. Pulling right up, right where you reside.
And I don't know if he got replaced for the third time, because the original Black Noir is cooked already. But man, I don't know. They might be going the comic book route. If y'all know the comic book route is like, hold on. But most of the time, like, you don't really see TV shows that's usually like adapted from a comic book. They don't always follow the comic book or like the blueprint. Like, you know what I'm saying? They usually switch it up. Like, even like with The Walking Dead, like, it was certain stuff they switched up, like with the governor, with Shane, with Rick, like, they switched it up a little bit. So if they keep the same plot where it's like a clone, I don't know. Because I'm not gonna lie, that's gonna be a lot to cover up, man. That's gonna be a lot.
Ever since the release of The Boys Season 5, fans have been going crazy over one theory in particular, that Black Noir may not actually be who we think he is anymore. After what we've seen so far, a lot of people believe this isn't the same person from last season at all, and that he could secretly be a Homelander clone. But what if I told you there are already a few strange clues that make this theory way more believable than ever before? In today's video, we're diving into one of the biggest theories surrounding The Boys and the disastrous implications it could have for where the show is heading. So the first major hint is that throughout this entire season so far, Black Noir hasn't said a word. And yeah, on paper that might not sound like some huge smoking gun at first, because obviously if you've watched The Boys from the start, you know Black Noir being silent is nothing new. For the first 3 seasons, that was actually his whole thing. But the reason this suddenly matters now is because by season 4, that version of Black Noir is gone, and he's replaced by a completely different person. And unlike the original, this new Black Noir actually does speak. That's what makes the silence in season 5 feel way weirder than it normally would, because this isn't some naturally mute guy keeping up the same behavior he always had. This is somebody who, as far as we know, has never been
I'm not gonna lie, one theory that I could see, and I was thinking a little bit, because I thought that he was going to be the initial replacement for Black Noir, the one that died. It could be Sam from Gen V. And I personally, when the first Black Noir died, I thought it was going to be Sam as the replacement, because they was having very similar powers, as well as like both of them like having the illusions where like they was seeing stuff. So I was like, maybe Sam going to be the first replacement, but maybe he's the replacement now. You know what I'm saying? Because yeah, he was having the illusions like how Black Noir was seeing the cartoons and all that. But he kind of seemed to like calm down a little bit. So I think maybe he could be Black Noir now, but maybe he's in disguise and he's trying to infiltrate. But at the same time, as far as I know, Homelander has like the vision where he can see through the mask. Not unless maybe he has a zinc mask on. I don't know.
He isn't allowed to talk around the rest of the 7. And from what we've seen of him, he kind of looks like he does the opposite, as he talks quite a lot. So why suddenly go dead silent again? That's where things start to get kind of interesting, because the silence almost feels less like a character trait and more like a cover. If this really is still the same guy replacing Black Noir from season 4, then there's no real reason for him to be acting like this now, unless he's intentionally trying to not reveal something. And the most obvious thing he could be hiding is his identity, because the second he opens opens his mouth, his voice could give it all away. Maybe the people around him would instantly realize that whoever is under that suit is not the same person they thought it was. And in a show like The Boys, where crazy stuff is being planted episodes in advance, that kind of detail does not feel accidental, it feels intentional. And once fans started noticing that weird shift, that's when the theory really started to spiral. Because a lot of people online are starting to think this silence is the show's first major sign that something is seriously off. And when looking at the fandom, the general consensus right now is honestly pretty split. On one side, you've got people who are fully buying into the idea that this could be some version of the Homelander clone twist from the comics, and that the show is quietly setting it up before dropping the reveal later on. But on the other side, there are also fans who think people are jumping on this way too fast, and that there are way simpler explanations for why Black Noir is acting different. One comment I saw pretty much sums up the skepticism perfectly. Look, as iconic as it is, it was still such an asshole. I don't know how they'd write that in without it just feeling like they were going, look guys, we put Clonelander from the comics in.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it would be cool because, like, y'all taking from the blueprint, but at the same time, it's like, that's going to be a lot to cover and just put it on another person, like a clone. Like, because in the comics, it was the clone that was making it seem like Homelander was doing that the whole time. And the whole time, the real Homelander, I think, was like, not a nice guy, but he wasn't like evil, you know? So if they do that, that's going to be a lot to cover up, bro. Whole lot.
And honestly, that is a fair point, because even if the theory is interesting, this is the kind of twist that could either be insanely clever or feel unbelievably forced depending on how they handle it. At the same time though, there are other fans trying to explain away the silence without going full clone theory. One person said, I'm suspecting they cut off his tongue or removed his voice box. The Noir is so devoted to becoming a big name celebrity that he's willing to undergo such drastic. So clearly not everybody thinks this is leading to some giant comic accurate reveal. Some think it's Homelander in the suit, some think it's a clone, and some even believe it's a numerous amount of characters present in the universe. But even with all of that disagreement, I still think it raises one huge question. Why do something this odd now? Because after season 4 already showed Noir's replacement being able to clearly fly, that felt like such a strange detail to include unless it was meant to subtly nod towards the cloning angle from the comics. And once you start looking at it from that perspective, you kind of have to talk about what actually happens in the source material, because that's where this theory starts getting way crazier. In the comics, Black Noir isn't just some mysterious guy hiding under the mask for no reason. He's revealed to be a direct clone of Homelander, secretly created as a failsafe in case Homelander ever stepped out of line. That alone is already insane, but what makes it even darker is that Noir doesn't just sit there waiting for that moment to come. Instead, over time, he completely loses his mind because the one purpose he was ever created for never actually happens. As one article puts it, Black Noir was a direct clone of Homelander, created by Vought as a failsafe to kill Homelander if he ever overstepped his bounds. And because he spends so long trapped in that role with no payoff, he basically decides to force the situation himself. He starts framing Homelander for horrific crimes, manipulating events behind the scenes, and slowly pushing him further and further into madness until he becomes the exact monster Noir was made to destroy in the first place. That's what makes the comic twist so memorable, because it wasn't just, oh wow, he was a clone the whole time. It completely flips the story on its head. The person everyone thinks is the main source of the chaos turns out to be getting manipulated by something even worse lurking in the background the entire time. And the scariest part is how perfectly Black Noir is able to hide it. He stays silent, stoic, and unreadable for nearly the whole story, which makes the reveal hit that much harder once you realize the quietest guy in the room was secretly the most dangerous one there. Even some of his abilities are meant to mirror his counterpart, with it being noted that as a clone of Homelander, Black Noir should be capable of flying, which is exactly why that detail stands out so much whenever people start considering this theory. So if the show really is pulling from this idea, then the next question becomes way bigger than whether the twist is possible, because now you have to ask why Vought, or maybe even Homelander himself, would want something like this in motion at all from the show's context. Now if the show were to actually do this, it would probably have to be handled a little differently than it was in the comics, because in the comics the whole point of Black Noir being a clone was that he had to secretly push Homelander into becoming the monster he was always meant to kill. But in the show, Homelander is already way past that point. He's not some unstable guy being slowly manipulated behind the scenes into crossing lines anymore. He's already done much more than any of that. This is a man who has openly lasered people in public, done horrific things in front of others, and reached a point where he barely even feels the need to hide what he is. So if Black Noir really is some kind of clone in the show, then the purpose probably wouldn't wouldn't be to frame Homelander for anything, because at this point Homelander wouldn't even care. The real purpose would have to be something else entirely. Now if a clone does exist, then somebody had to make him and keep him out of sight until now. The most believable option is probably someone with old VOD connections like Stan Edgar, especially since he's one of the few people in this universe who would actually have both the intelligence and the long-term mindset to set up something this insane. If Edgar has really been forced underground and is still looking for a way to eventually take Homelander off the map, creating some kind of backup weapon in secret would honestly make a lot of sense. The other possibility is that he was created by some hidden branch of VOD or maybe even the government, but that starts feeling way less likely the more you think about how much control Homelander has now. He's become so powerful politically and socially that he's basically untouchable, and it's even been stated that he's managed to shut down major institutions like the CIA, the FBI, and more. So the idea that some giant operation could create a Homelander level clone behind his back without him finding out feels pretty hard to buy, which means if this is happening, it was probably done by someone smart enough to play the long game. And if that's true, then the bigger question is what this could all be building towards by the finale, because the most obvious reason a Homelander clone would even exist in the first place is to fight Homelander one-on-one. If he was created with the same core abilities, the same power set, and the same overall purpose of being able to match him physically, then that would finally give the show a believable way to make Homelander face something he's never truly had to face before, himself. Not just emotionally, but quite literally. And there's something kind of poetic about that. After everything Homelander has done, after all the fear he's built his entire identity on, the idea of him dying at the hands of a version of himself would be an interesting way to end the show. But honestly, I'm not too sure how I would feel about it. Me personally, I want to see Butcher fight him.
Yeah, I want to see him and Butcher fight. I feel like if they do that with the clone, it just feels like it's just kind of, for one, forced, but it's not even like a good closure, you know?
One-on-one and put an end to him himself, but I digress. After all, this is The Boys, so of course there's also a
like him and Butcher got ahead at 1, Soulja Boy and MM got ahead at 1, Starlight and the Deep got ahead at 1. It's certain people where like they just gotta hatch it out, you feel me?
much darker possibility. What if the clone doesn't exist to stop Homelander at all? What if it goes rogue, or worse, what if it truly sides with him? Then instead of Homelander finally meeting his equal, you suddenly have two near Homelander level threats standing on the same side against the boys. And if that happened, let's just say the odds would get completely ridiculous. It would already be hard enough to beat one of them in a final confrontation.
I mean, again, they can rely on like Marie from Gen V, but two Homelanders on the same side is kind of crazy. And technically, basically that's 4 Homelanders, because we don't know where Ryan's side's at. Ryan probably gonna join the boys, but if he's still on like with his pops, that's a wrap. And then you still got Soldier Boy, so.
But 2, at that point, it becomes less about winning and more about surviving the chopping block. However, there's also a third possibility that could be just as interesting, which is that the second this thing is exposed as a clone, the boys use that opportunity as a test run. They throw every possible weapon they have at it just to see what actually works before going up against the real deal. That alone could completely shift the endgame into something we never saw coming. So yeah, there are pretty much infinite directions the show could go with this, but if Black Noir really is some kind of Homelander clone, then it will probably be revealed soon depending on when you're watching this video, but as always, we'll just have to see. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and leave your thoughts in the comments.
It might be Sam, and then even with that episode, right, and Starlight was trying to, she showed the video of Homelander with the plane situation, and it seemed like Black Noir really wanted to stop her. Like, he was kind of holding back a little bit, you know? He did kill the guy in the computer room, but that was a side character. So, I mean, it might be Sam from Gen V just trying to infiltrate. But, I don't know, man. Let me know what y'all think. Who do y'all think the new Black Noir could be? Because obviously it's somebody new. Not unless it's the same second one and they just cut his tongue off or something. So, but they definitely doing something.